504. I'm going to be pulling up a question that I saw, or a comment that was posted from Brandon Lilly on his Peace, Love, and Meat Instagram, and talking about athletes reaching their potential, talking about the detriment of the single sport athlete, which was, that's extremely crucial. And I'm going to pull up that question when I find it in my email. So here we go. It's I would say it's a loaded question, so we're going to dig into it here. Let's see. There we go. Hey, you know what I'm going to do? Save it, download it, be able to do it. Those of you that are new here, and make sure you go to zachstrength.com, pick up your free training courses, and also want to talk about Defend USA, compression gear, recovery gear. Love their stuff. I use it. My kids use it. I use the long pants, the shorts, and also picking up knee sleeve compression gear. I'm going to lower this camera a little bit, see if we can get a little bit of a better angle for you guys. Got a lot of stuff here. Yep. All right, team. That is better. So check it out. This is from Brandon Lilly, saying one of the most challenging aspects of coaching athletes, in my humble opinion, is maximizing their potential for quote unquote now result. All right. What can I do to get their best and maximum results now in a progressive system that builds them for longevity? This is very good. And Brandon speaks from experience, as he was a world-class level powerlifter and blew out his knees. And so he knows about trying to be the best now, but being the best now, does it destroy your health or really impede your health down the road? And I have experience with that from my wrestling injury to my right knee, which has had 4 knee surgeries. And I just consistently feel the effect of it. And that is what happens when you go so intense with not just true intensity, but also high volume. So Brandon Lilly says, I was injured in the prime of my career, unwilling to slow down or miss any opportunity to prove myself. Sometimes athletes need to be restrained for tomorrow's good. I'm going to dig into that. Master Strength, which is Bill Gillespie, is a legend in coaching. Okay, he's a strength coach at the Division I and NFL level, and he works for Sornex, and he's basically like their master educator. An amazing guy to be around. So Bill Gillespie is an all-time world record bench press holder. And Brandon said, I asked him, how are you able to achieve 1,100 plus pound bench press at over 60 years old? And I don't care if people say, oh, he was doing this in gear. The fucking dude had 11 plus 100 pounds in his hands, which is friggin' crazy. And so Bill says, I wasn't ready. I had not done the training for that lift until the preparation period. It took me that long to build up to it, decades. If I tried that even a year ago, it would have crushed me. Every training day I've ever had led to that. And Brandon goes on to say, so I ponder the question, how do you help a young athlete understand that their potential isn't what they achieve right now? It's the legacy they leave when they are done in the competition arena. Secondly, how do you combat the common narrative of hyper-specialization at these younger and younger ages, when the goal for youth should be general strength, general physical preparation? I love that question. I think it's extremely powerful. This is my favorite cup right here. So, I love this question. Something I think about all the time when I'm training athletes in the moment is I say, well, am I doing this exercise because it's a great exercise, it's a powerful movement, and I could get away with it now, but if I really get them attacking this exercise or this style of training, how are they going to feel in their mid-20s, late 20s, mid-30s, late 30s when they are a parent? Like, if these baseball players never get their hands on a specialty bar, a Swiss bar bench press, a safety squat bar, I'm just killing them on these lifts, how's their shoulders going to feel? Will they not be able to play catch with their son one day? Will they not be able to throw the baseball or the football to their kids one day? Same thing with like girls soccer players, notorious for torn ACLs. Am I going to just keep putting them under the bar when they're showing that they are not like really grasping the hip and ankle mobility to squat deep or lunge deep or do split squats deep? And the answer is you have to train kids as if they are your own. What would you want done for your own kids? What kind of care into the coaching would you want done? And even if you don't have kids, you have to pretend that these are your own children. And that gets you to think about training for long-term health, not just being the best they can now. But I also believe that when we're training for long-term health, for the most part, not always, when you're training to be an elite athlete, it's just not healthy. The intensity, the volume, the focus, that's not quote unquote healthy, right? Being healthy has a lot of kind of balance to it. But when you are an elite athlete, you're extreme. You're doing extreme things. But I think if we want to maximize the potential of these athletes, we need to stop looking at what is, these standout teams and athletes doing in the Big Ten or in, the Southern Conference, whatever this is for, what is the football conference down south. Stop copying that training and implementing it to these high school kids who can't run jog a fucking quarter mile. Stop copying elite workouts for elite athletes, for pro athletes, and blanket copying them, cut and pasting them for high school athletes. Willie T asked a question, just bought a book for my shoulders because my shoulders are killing me, especially during my bench press. Willie, go on my YouTube channel, use the search function and type in shoulder health. I have a lot of shoulder health videos on there. And you also are going to want to research Squat University, Donnie Thompson, and Kelly Starrett for shoulder health. And there's probably many more as well. Dang it, I'm forgetting his name. He's from Ireland, and the last name is Gray. So just research like Ireland, Gray, physical therapy. I'm pissed off that I can't remember his name. But I have a lot of these resources on my YouTube. And so you must utilize them and search for them. And so back to the training. How do you get their potential now? I am boots on the ground training high school athletes every single day. The high school athletes I train at my high school are not the same as the kids I train at the underground. I say that all the time, and I don't say that in a way to put down the kids that I train at my high school. But at my high school, I had a conversation with them today. As I said, listen, one of our guys just visited a Division III school. He got to see the wrestling team strength training. And he said the coaches didn't have to say anything to them. They were crushing their training. They were actually running from one exercise to the next. He said it almost looked a little bit dangerous of how fast they were attacking the weight room. He's like, but what really impressed me was the intensity. And I said, yes, you guys don't realize that training most of the time is pretty high intensity. Whereas you guys spend time talking in between sets, skipping sleds, skipping warm-up exercises, skipping exercises that get you better. And so when it comes to reaching your potential, an athlete reaching their potential, Travis Mash consistently says, become a master of the mundane. I think he took that line from one of his weightlifting athletes. And essentially it is, do you sleep 8 hours a night? Do you always get a great home-cooked breakfast? Do you always eat a solid home-cooked lunch? Do you come home and have a small meal, a small dinner, then another dinner later, then another breakfast late at night or a protein shake? And most athletes are not doing this. In fact, most athletes skip breakfast, buy the school lunch, eat a Pop-Tart or a muffin after school, and then their first home-cooked meal is at 6 p.m. And they go to bed after midnight, and so they're sleeping about 5 or 6 hours a night. So they're missing 2 to 3 hours a day, 10 to 15 hours a week. That is 40 to 60 hours per month. And that, of course, becomes, 500 to 600 hours of missed sleep a year. And so do you master the mundane? So before we even talk about potential, we need to talk about doing brilliance with the basics, getting those most crucial elements to do these basic things great. At the Underground Strength Gym, a private facility where parents are paying for their kids to go there, we see more of a invested interest. I am communicating almost every day with those parents through emails and through our social media. And so they hear the message. And then our coaches check in with these kids all the time. What did you eat for breakfast? What did you have for lunch? Okay, here's where we need to change. What time did you go to sleep? And so most athletes are operating 25, 50% under their actual potential. Take a little sip of my tea. Decaf, a little bit of honey, a little bit of milk. Willie T's comment says, man, I remember so many kids in football doing that. Right. In football, what are the mainstays of most kind of uneducated programs that don't evolve? Squat, instead of squatting all the way down and getting that full range of motion and really building durability and preparing the ankles, knees, and calves, we're missing that. And so what do we get? A way too heavy half squat or a half squat good morning, wrecking their back, training too heavy and too slow. We're doing hang power clean or we're doing power clean from the floor. Power clean from the floor tends to look extremely ugly, where instead of a nice vertical motion, we see the butt lift up, and then we see a real ugly deadlift, and then a standing swinging reverse curl, legs out wide, barbell landing on the chest, ripping down the shoulders. And so until these athletes have access to a coach who knows how to coach, who holds a high standard of technique, and has a program that builds in proper technique, proper intensity, proper periodization, implementing a blend of science with a blend of the art of coaching, those kids could never reach their potential, because a lot of the coaches that we have at the youth and high school level are not elite. Or if you do have a good coach, and I do not blame the coaches for this, they're oftentimes like a horse going this way and the carriage is getting pulled in the other way, because the parents do not support the very things that the kids need to succeed. And so I might have to take a little bit of a break here because, of course, while I'm doing my podcast, I've got people messaging me. Okay, we're going to take a little pause here, just a second. So, we are back. Sorry about that. Okay, and so I see why the only kid that went to the NFL had a trainer. If you're going to the NFL, it's not necessarily that you have a coach. It's oftentimes you are an absolute outlier. You have to have some sort of genetic freak going on inside of you, but you also need a massive support network, from strength coach to proper nutrition at home to proper training. And I actually have a clip on the YouTube, possibly, but definitely on Instagram, of Will Fries. He's a lineman. Right now he's with the Minnesota Vikings, but he was with Indianapolis Colts. He's a Jersey boy. And he said that every morning he'd wake up. His father was a former shot putter. His father was studying and researching Westside Barbell. And what did his father do? His father trained him every morning at 6 a.m. in the basement in their gym. And then around 6:45, 6:50, he'd come upstairs and then he'd have a big breakfast. Eggs and toast, pancake and eggs, pancakes and bacon, 2 glasses of milk. And Will said then he also lifted at school with his football coach, who was doubling down as the strength coach. And sometimes those football coaches are good. Sometimes they are not so good. Okay, now we're going to get to the next question, talking about, the one sport athlete. What's happening with the one sport athlete is they get good at the sport in their younger years, right? We start seeing a higher level of skill in the middle school years and in the early high school years. But in high school, we're also seeing, so this is kind of like confuses people, we're also seeing a removal of the middle of the athletes, kind of like the economy being there's no middle class. There's just the rich, and then there's the poor, the people who are struggling. Middle class has been eliminated. In high school sports, we're seeing there's no freshman team for name sport, baseball, softball. There's no JV team for lots of softball. Soccer, only has JV and varsity. Freshman wrestling has been eliminated. When I was a freshman, 1989 and 1990, I had to wrestle off to try to make the freshman team. Now we could even go to some pretty large high schools and there's no freshman baseball team. Why not? There's a lack of athleticism because of the lack of free play, the lack of street play, the lack of multi-sport athletes. And so a kid cannot walk onto a sport team as a freshman. Hey, I'm a good athlete. I played football. I've played basketball, for 3 to 4 years. Now I'm going to try baseball. Nope. You're not going to be able, maybe you could, but we're missing coaches who can develop these kids. And that is a big missing component to achieving potential. And of course, the other missing component I said earlier is a lot of the sport coaches at the youth level, they're dads. They're not really great coaches. They're just dads who played the sport themselves. And unless you understand coaching, how to develop, how to progress an athlete according to their physical readiness, according to their emotional and psychological readiness, how to maybe make adjustments. I know we don't like to use the word regressions. God forbid people get offended by that. But most coaches, they don't understand how to make adjustments within the group. And so the issue is, kids, because they have a lack of, they call this now, all these big words, physical literacy. It's such a weak word. I mean, the true word is they lack athleticism. They lack coordination. They lack fitness. They can't, you got to remember, 80s and 90s, your running was just a mode of transportation. Hey, I'm going to John Smith's house. I'm running there. Hey, I'm going to John Smith's house. I'm riding my bike there. Kids don't ride bikes anywhere. Unless you're in a little town like mine, kids are riding their bikes everywhere. They're riding their bikes to the beach. Then they surf and do all these activities. But most kids today, hey, I'm going to John Smith's house. I'm going to Uber there. And also, we're not getting proper nutrition in the house. And so how do we combat this single sport athlete and the problems it's causing, the injuries, the lack of athleticism, the lack of feeding into other sports? Well, number one, high school coaches need to start supporting one another. Most of them do not, right? You hear a lot of wrestling coaches saying, hey, football linemen, you should be wrestling. We don't hear enough of wrestling coaches saying, hey, big guys, you need to get tougher. And the best thing you could do is train with the football team and lift with them to learn to compete. Maybe the technique's not that best, but you're going to learn to compete. And also, you have to learn to hit people and take hits. It's going to make you meaner and tougher, which is going to boost your wrestling, okay? Basketball coach is looking for the skill guys from football, but is the basketball coach saying, hey guys, some of you need to lift more and strength train more. You should get on that football team and you should learn another sport because it's going to give you better sport IQ, understanding offense and defense. We don't see this. We always see these coaches telling this other team they should join them, but not vice versa. So where is the support? And so here's what's missing, guys. We want all this fancy stuff. We dig deep into the nuances of training. And then when it comes down to it, you got athletes that can't bench press 135 pounds for 10 reps or 1 rep. Maybe you do have some, or you got a kid. I saw a kid at my school today. He did a trap bar deadlift with 500 pounds, but guess what? He used straps. He used the weight belt. There's no transfer of training for that. It's all ego lifting. And there's a saying that you hear some coaches say. They're like, guess where the strongest guy in the weight room is when we're playing games? Sitting right next to the coach on the bench, because he's poured all his effort into lifting heavy, that he's not fast, he's not powerful, he's not athletic, he hasn't played other sports, and so he's just kind of this strong and useless athlete. Pathfinder, the way you emphasize the nutrition is considered less important as compared to exercise in sports community. I'm not sure I understand your question. I'll say this. I actually said it to my athletes the other day. I said, you could start training with your buddy at the same time, and a year from now, he could gain 10, 15, 20 pounds and look completely different than you. Certainly some of it because of genetics, but because He eats breakfast, he eats a home-cooked lunch, and then he comes home and has a third meal, and then dinner, and then a protein shake at night. But not you. You skip breakfast. You eat the school lunch. After school, you have a candy bar, or you go and buy Pop-Tarts and muffins. Then you eat whatever is made at home. Your first meal is actually dinner. And then at night, maybe you eat a bowl of cereal or nothing. There could be nothing in your house. So you're doing the same training, but the athlete who's eating properly just climbs. The athlete who does not, his lack of nutrition or her lack of nutrition puts up a roadblock to results. That is the bottom line. That eating is a massive make or break factor for athletes. And what I'm learning today is kids don't know how to even turn on a stovetop. They don't even know how to make themselves eggs. I'm telling you this from experience. I'm just stating facts. A lot of people will be like, he's mean, he's putting people down. I'm stating facts. I ask kids, what did you eat? They tell me they ate goldfish for breakfast. They skipped breakfast. They were eating a Pop-Tart. They're eating all these processed foods that are, have cancer-causing crap in them. Yet, where is just getting back to the basics? I love what Jim Wendler says about training. He says, what special program do you need to be on if you can't do 50 push-ups and run 1 mile? What if it's just run half a mile, do 50 push-ups, 10 pull-ups? What if you can't do 10 walking lunges without falling over and crashing your knee to the floor? If you can't do 10 pull-ups, but you're constantly benching heavy, there's a problem with that. If you're doing power cleans, but you don't know how to do a front squat, there's a problem with that. And so what I'm learning is all this education, all this information that's out there, it's actually not helping people because the algorithm just feeds people entertainment. Education requires commitment to the time, to learning. People watching this video for 22 minutes will be extremely rare. Remember, people swipe away within 5 seconds. What would make this video more powerful? I have to be shirtless. I have to be about 250 ripped. And I tell the guys that are going down this influencer lane, as I say, man, your whole business depends on all the drugs that you take, how heavy of the weight you lift, and everything is based on the surface, not actual training knowledge that you could deliver to the majority of people who are natural. Okay? So, wasted talent from a Bronx tale. That's part of this title here. Potential, right? Potential is just this word we use. It really means nothing. It means what you could be, what you could become, what you can achieve if you do all these things correctly with consistency and effort. And really today the problem is I have this conversation with my head coach at the Underground. As I say, kids in the early 2000s when I opened the Underground, they used to stay after and train for another 30 minutes. They would train for an hour. They would put together their own training. Today, kids always have to leave early. They're running to this next private lesson, to this next club training. And yes, Sam Sulek is very impressive in bodybuilding, but I grew up in bodybuilding. I've seen much more impressive bodybuilders than Sam on probably 1/10 of the drugs that he's on. But guess what? A teenage athlete for wrestling, football, track and field, swimming, baseball, they trust Sam Sulek more than they trust me. That is the reality of it. And that is the unfortunate reality of it. And so potential, talent, it's not in the coach's hands. It's not in mom and dad's hands. It's in the athlete's hands. If he or she can come across the right information, get in the right environment and be coachable to that environment, get in the right kind of geographical location so you're exposed to the expert coaches. Like if you grow up in Dagestan and you're a boy, you will be a wrestler, you will be a fighter because the environment is all mountains. You're running hills, you're walking hills, you're lifting stones. There's wrestling everywhere. The wrestling coaches are not just some dad that wrestled in high school. They're often world-class coaches. And then, of course, we have genetics. And then we have opportunity. You know, you live in a house where maybe your parents support the nutrition, the training, the commitment, the financial commitment, the time commitment, or parents that don't. I've had many parents talking to me from their Cadillac Escalade, their Jaguar, their Ferrari, their fancy home where they own a boat and take vacations every winter, every summer at an island, and they're asking me about a discount. Like saving $50 or $100 will save them. So those parents are more focused on stuff. Whereas some parents get it. They're like, I'm going to help my son or daughter become a great athlete because of the life lessons they will learn through sports and the vehicle that sports gives them and brings them closer to greater opportunities and maybe social circles and networks. And I've seen it, you know, coaching at Lehigh, the alumni network, helping Coach Buxton at Blair. I've seen the power of their alumni network. Rutgers with their mentorship support network. Getting in the right circles is extremely powerful. And so single sport athletes, how do we get them to do multiple sports? It needs to come from many angles. If mom and dad don't believe in it, we're kind of up against a wall. If the business model never changes, we're up against the wall. So when you're on a baseball travel team, you're in winter training. Then you have spring baseball at your school. Then you have summer baseball. Then you have fall ball. If you have fall ball, how can you play football or soccer or track? Okay? And then they say, hey, you're on this travel team. You have to play fall ball. It's in our contract. Or what about these travel soccer teams? They make kids sign contracts to not play at their high school. Basically promising these kids, if you compete with, if you are on this travel team, we will get you to a D1 school. It's extremely hard to get to the D1 level. And that being said, Division II and Division III is extremely competitive. It just has less mandatory training time. Willie says, hey, my mom didn't do much. Well, listen, my parents didn't know much. They were not exposed to this. Nobody gave them ongoing knowledge and education. I'm constantly educating the parents of our athletes. And even then, they still don't listen. And so, guys, there's a lot of moving parts that come down to the detriment of single sport athlete. There's also a lot of moving parts to who, when, where, and why an athlete can reach their potential. And also, as I said before, does your training just maximize potential now, but does it also keep them healthy in the long run? That's it, guys. That's all I got for this episode, Strong Life Podcast. I believe we're at episode 504. Defend USA is one of our partners, Bring the Strong Life Podcast. I love their compression gear, their recovery gear. I had my son order stuff, elbow or arm sleeve, very good for baseball. I use their long compression pants and their shorts when I'm training legs. It makes your knees and hips and groin feel very tight. Louis Simmons spoke about wearing compression gear and compression shorts decades ago, and I think it's just crucial. And there's a discount code. I will link that up below, a 20% discount code, which is ZACH, Z-A-C-H, and just go to Defend USA. You could Google that or dfndusa.com. And I also just ordered myself the knee sleeve compression sleeves because I'll be using them when I train legs. ZachStrength.com, free strength training courses. You cannot go wrong. And also, do yourself a favor. Get yourself a cup of coffee or an anabolic protein shake. Open up the Zach Evanesh blog and just search for whatever you want. Youth training, middle school training, strong over 40, fit over 40, football strength, wrestling strength, conjugate method, Louis Simmons, you name it. I've written an article about it. You guys will love it. Thank you guys. Shutting it down, and we'll talk.